able to work with the UMass Lowell Saab Center for Portuguese Studies on both the exhibit that we have downstairs as well as the programming associated with it. So welcome to your national park here in Lowell, and I hope you enjoy the program this morning.
And good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Bom dia a todos. I would like to invite Consul General Tiago here at Araújo to come and say a few words.
Bon dia. Good morning, everyone. And thank you, Frank, for yet another important initiative for our community in Lowell. One thing I enjoy about being a diplomat is that every time I'm posted to a place, I have to learn the history of that place and the history of the people who live in it. And these past 2.5 years since I arrived in Boston have been an amazing learning experience for me. Nothing could have prepared me for what I discovered here, the importance of the Portuguese community. And I think Lowell is becoming, through the leadership of the Saab Center, is becoming one amazing center of knowledge, of scholarship about our community, the whole of New England. And I think that all that data, all that analysis that you've been gathering is already producing results, and it's I know science is a value in itself, and I know that the historians of the future, the sociologists of the future, will find that information will be invaluable for their future studies. But it's also important for us to pay homage and to recognize the role of our community, in particular here in Lowell. It's a history made of many thousands of individual stories of people who worked in the mills of Lowell, who built this city. And for me, it's a pleasure to continue that learning experience here today, learning about the individual stories of people who work and then who contribute to this community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So now reversing the order, welcome to the Colloquium Voices from Industry, Portuguese workers in Lowell's late manufacturing era. Today we're very fortunate to have 5 extraordinary individuals who will share their experiences with us, and they'll be moderated by the 2 Nicoles, Nicole Tantum and Nicole Catarino, whom I'll introduce in just a moment. But they all belong to what is generally called the 3rd wave of Portuguese immigration to the United States. The first one set the trend for immigration and the settlement patterns. That was the whaling generation from the late 18th century to the 1880s. And then you have the second wave related to the mills, the cotton mills here, the textile mills here, and all around New England and all the way down eventually also to New Jersey, where the Portuguese went by the 19-teens and 20s. And so that was the second. This here is the 3rd generation that was triggered by a natural disaster in the Azores, the Covilhã eruption in Fayal in 1958, which led to John F. Kennedy, then senator, to propose something called the Azorian Refugee Act of 1958, which was again signed by the president a second time in 1960. And that began to open the doors for that 3rd wave, which was open completely. The gates were open completely with the Immigration Naturalization Act of 1965. And those numbers then mirror the numbers of the 2nd wave, which are up to 15,000, 17,000 a year. To give you an idea how things changed with immigration law, in 1924 you were still getting 10,000, 15,000 Portuguese immigrants to the US, but by 1925, 500 a year. And by the 1930s, more Portuguese were going to the Azores than were coming here because of the Great Depression. So in the 1960s, you have this amazing flourishing again of immigration and a renovation, a revitalization of the Portuguese communities throughout the United States, including in Lowell. So that the Portuguese language was again prominent. And so through the church, St. Anthony's, through the different clubs, through the soccer clubs, It was an amazing experience. And as George Coelho Oliveira told me in an interview 2 years ago, he said it was like a family. We felt like a family together at St. Anthony's, at the clubs. There was this amazing sense of fellowship, of sharing, and of people helping each other out. So these five belong to that generation. And all of this, in many ways, the flourishing of the culture, etc., was made possible by the economics of the era, which is a renovation in American manufacturing that topped by the early 1980s and then fell into great decline, as we well know. But so the experience of these five reflect that experience. In spite of the hardships, we all know Joan Fabrics. I've heard horror stories about Joan Fabrics, but the fact is that this extraordinary economic vitality of Lowell and the United States in that period offered these folks and so many others, and many of you in the audience, an opportunity to raise your families and to give opportunities to the next generation that you yourselves did not have. So the sacrifice that these five and many others made with the opportunity that was made possible by an America that opened its doors, that welcomed you and us here, as I came in that generation myself. And so this is, I think, the stories that we are going to hear today have to do with that experience. So Nicole Tantum was the founding archivist of the Portuguese American Digital Archive at the university. I think some of you already know her. And then we have Nicole Catarino, who was just hired this past June and is the second archivist of the Portuguese American Digital Archive. The importance of the digital archive to document, to keep for future generations that experience, those documents that without an archive would disappear. And so I'm sure they'll tell you, well, in fact, later on this morning, they'll be giving you a presentation on those archives. So anyway, welcome to the two of you and the panelists, and I'll let the two of them introduce today's panelists. Thank you all for coming. And thank you to the park. Thank you to the park. And the Lowell Historical Society, as the president of the Lowell Historical Society is here. Josam, is that Joe?
Yep.
Josam?
Yes.
Okay, Joe Josam, the president of the Lowell Historical Society, who is one of the two co-sponsors, along with the park, the national park of this event today. So thank you all for your support, and let's listen to what's really important.
Great. All right, thank you so much. Oh, can everybody hear me? Is this microphone working?
Yes.
Hooray. This is a success. All right, great. So thank you very much for the very kind introduction, Frank. I am Nicole Catarino. I am the current archivist for the Portuguese American Digital Archive here at UMass Lowell. And we will begin today by introducing our wonderful panelists. So if you all wouldn't mind, we'll just kind of go down in an order. If you can introduce your name, where you were born, where you immigrated to, or when you immigrated, where you immigrated to, and then your connection to the Portuguese community in Lowell. So if we want to start. Perfect. In 3 to 4 minutes. Very important.
I'm José Carlos. I came from St. George, 1970, to Lowell, Mass. And I started working at Great Shoe. I worked there for 2 weeks. Then I moved to Ferry Shoe for Lawrence May for 2 weeks. Then from there, I went to night school. What the name of that place is. I was learning English and electronics. Then from there, I went to, I was there for about 5 months, and then from there I went to Press Macaroni. And I was there since 72 to 1990. I started there as the in charge of sanitation quality control, and from there I learned all the steps, which was packing department, manufacturing. I started for macaroni in Lawrence, Massachusetts. Then we built a new place in Lowell, and I was transferred to Lowell in 1980. Then I came to be production manager, which in 1980, then I was production manager in 1990. Then Boott bought the company in 1980, I believe it was 1988. We had a great experience with the owner of the company, which is Joseph Pellegrini, which was a great man. And it changed rapidly after the Gordons took over. Then not too long after that, I believe it was 1995, 96, then when they sold and they sort of the company just dissolved. And after that, I just started my own business. And I've been in my own business since.
That's
I'm still working.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. You want to go down the line?
Good morning. My name is João Silva. I came to the States on December 24th of 1976 in search of a better future, just like all of us, most of us. And I started at grade school right after I arrived, and I worked there for about 8-9 months. As soon as I turned 18, I was invited to work at Magellite. That's where I started, and I've been there since. So 47, going to 48 years. Started at a very low level there, just like a normal worker, a machine operator, just like everybody else. Then I worked myself up over the years, and right now I'm a production control manager throughout the factory. Basically it.
Thank you so much.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for inviting me to be here today. My name is Cidália Mendonça. And I immigrated to the United States in 1977.
From?
From Terceira, Azores.
Good morning. My name is Filomena Mello, and I came to the States in 1962 at the age of 9 years old from Graciosa, Azores.
Good morning. My name is Lowell Mello. I came to the United States in 1972. I was 12 years old. I went to Lowell High School for 3 years. At the age of 15, I went to work on a shoe shop with shoe. I worked there for 10 years. And when I went to work in a shoe shop for 15 years old, I wasn't old enough to work on a machine. But my mother used to work there in a great shoe. And she asked the supervisor, which the manager his name was Indy. And she asked him for me to go to work there because she needed someone to work to help the house because the family was a big family. And we went to work there, 15, but I was too short to reach the machine. So, Genuino Mendonça, he was a Portuguese fellow. He says he used to tell the boss, "No worry about it, he's gonna reach the machine." So he built a box so I can get in the top of the box so I can reach the machine. And I used to tack the soles on the machines and reshoot, which I worked there for 10 years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for those great introductions. Our first questions, we're going to talk a little bit more broadly about coming to Lowell and the memories that you have when you first arrived here. So anyone can answer these next couple questions, but we were looking to have you talk about the memories that you had when you first moved here. What was it like to be an immigrant? And then were there any organizations that you joined, such as St. Anthony's Church or the Holy Ghost Society or anything like that, that really made you feel welcome when you came here? Anyone? Go for it, go for it.
The best memory I have when I arrived was the tunnel coming out of Boston. I thought that was amazing. You come from a small island, and then you see something like that. You say, "Wow, America is the best country in the world. You can even go underground." So that was one of my first big memories. And then settling in Lowell, I started school, Central Street School, on back Central Street. And I started in the 2nd grade. And there wasn't many children at that time, Portuguese children. So I had to learn the language pretty quickly. And that was how
How many children spoke Portuguese
Oh,
when you arrived?
when there wasn't any that we really knew from the islands. I had a couple of cousins that I hung out with, and you had to learn very quickly if you wanted to communicate with other children. So it didn't take long. To learn the language.
If I can just have something, in '62, there were no other Portuguese
No.
kids that had immigrated. This is how far immigration had disappeared.
Right.
So that there were no children. She was the only one in that school, correct? In your
Right.
class.
I had 2 siblings, 2 brothers, but no children from the Azores or any other, a Lisbon or no, in 1962.
My memories is just when I came to Lowell. It was when I came to the plane, I see all the lights in Boston. It was like America. I was happy to come. Then when I arrived to Lowell, it was the first day was kind of shock because I expect the houses be beautiful and high risings, and it was the houses made by wood. It's very different from there. And because I come in 1977, the things over there is getting a little better than it was in your time. So it was a little shock for me, but then in walking to work with the snow, I come in the winter, walking to work every morning with cold and snow. So it's very hard to adapt, but I adapted, and I see America has a lot of opportunities to grow, and this is my memory, and I don't know if I still do.
No, earlier we talked about the shock that how strict the parents were here compared to back in the Azores just a few years later.
I thought we were going to talk that
Oh,
later
yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Did you want me to say
Yeah.
that? Okay, it was like, to me, it was like when I came in 1977, I went to high school there, and I was my parents, of course, they are old-fashioned too, when my father is a farmer, and my mom is a homemaid, and so but I have like a different ideas, like more, I see a little difference in here when I started working in Parachute. And I was like older people that time for me, because I was 19, and the people that time maybe 50s or 60s, that time for me they're older, and it was hard to adjust. The people I have was youngest. I remember Filomena and Glorinda, people more my age, and I was 19 years old. I painted my nails already there when I come here. I went to the factory, And I remember seeing those people look at me and says, wow, she painted her nails. So it was kind of a shock to me. I'm not used to that. That's for now, right?
My experience arriving to the States it was something, coming from the old country, working on a farm, and study at the same time. It was not easy. So when I arrived in Boston, yeah, just like everybody else, you look out the window and say, wow, look at this. Well, almost midnight, and all, of course, Christmas. And it was amazing. And a little surprise when I got to Lowell. It wasn't as beautiful as it Boston looked to me. Back in the days, Lowell was, it was nothing, not that attractive at all. The factories but like I said, I was in search of a better future, and this is had to deal with. And I went on and embrace it, just like one of my grandsons says once in a while, suck it up. It was something. And over the years, I get to know a lot of Portuguese peoples in the factory and people that I knew from years ago, years prior. And I was, oh, wow, this guy's here. Sometimes you don't know if they're going to Canada, if they're going to California, and you get to meet them at the factory and say, well, some people that you knew back in the island. And you build that relationship with them, and as you move on, and it was something, like it was a lot of Portuguese on a small factory, very old factory, and it was an amazing, the quality of the product that we're getting out of that very old building, and very good quality product, in fact, and people were so dedicated to work, just like, we're all, and it's true, we're like family, and what you don't see nowadays. People back then were just having a party, a Christmas party, we're bringing wine, it was just, we're having a Christmas party right there on the floor at the factory, bring your own wine, beer, cheese, Portuguese cheese, and that relationship doesn't exist anymore. With the ownership, with the management, with the people that you work with, unfortunately. But that's how it was back then. It was like a family. The same thing on the clubs. You go into the clubs, you hang around with people. It was just like a family. And you go to the Holy Ghost, the Blues, the Reds, and so on. Going to the soccer games over the years, it's just like everybody knew each other, and everybody was twisting in the same direction. And it was amazing. It was a really over the years to where we, but nowadays things are a little different. People move out from the center of Lowell, and people, just like everybody else, makes movements to improve, and so that's how we're.
My experience was a little different. I didn't like the States at all when I first came here. I got here in January. It was a lot of snow. And I had a pretty good life back in Azores. But after a while, I started going to school at night and started getting friends, and then I started enjoying it. Then after when I got to work with Prince, was most of all Portuguese people there, and like I had said, the owner, he loved the Portuguese people, and we had a great relationship through those years at this factory. And I sort of owned my life to this country. I had a lot of problems with my health. I had three open heart surgeries. I had a heart replacement. And probably if I was in Portugal, I wouldn't be living today. So, so glad that I came and still living. So it's a great experience in my life.
My experience coming from Portugal, Graciosa. When I first got here, we went to my aunt's house, and I stayed there for a few months until we got a house to live. And I used to love to stay at my aunt's house in the weekends because my uncle, Erling, used to go fishing every weekend. Every Saturday he used to go fishing. I used to love to go fishing with him every weekend. And it was a very good experience that we had. A very nice uncle that I had there, an aunt. I love her from the bottom of my heart, and they were excellent to me. They used to do everything to me, and they used to collect anybody to their house. They used to invite everybody to their house for Christmas, holidays, everything. My uncle used to be kind of pissed off sometimes because he says, "Why you invited all these people over here?" And she used to be very nice. She was a very nice person. I had a great time. I like it. I came to the States. It was July 15, 1972. Was summertime. So that was a great time. So we used to go every weekend fishing.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you all so much for sharing. So our next question for you all, which I think some of you have kind of touched on. So what was your first job here when you first came to Lowell, and how did you come across this job? How did you get the opportunity to begin your first job here?
Well, my first job was at Great Shoe, and my brother was working there, and that's all right. I came in one day and I started working the next day. But I only lasted 2 weeks. Then, like I said, from there I went to Lawrence Maid. Then I was there for another 2 weeks. Then that's what I went to school after that. Then I went to Prince and I stayed with Prince.
I believe I said earlier, first job I had was with the Great Shoe, and then I was there for 9 months until I turned 18. When I turned 18, then I moved to Majorlight Corporation, and I've been there since. Now, Great Shoe was like, it was most of the people that were there was just Portuguese. And when I started there, I didn't even know what the Social Security number was. We just started, just started to work. And then one of the supervisors come to me and say, you want to get paid, you need a Social Security, they need your Social Security number in the office. So me and Louis, we went almost across the street because we worked together, at the time. So Louis brought me to the Social Security one, so I got a number, went back to Gray Shoe. Okay, here's my number. I want to get paid. So, yeah, basically, that was my first job.
My first job when I come to America was Perry Shoe, and I get that job through my uncle was here, my husband's uncle, and then my husband. Now, before was my boyfriend. So I get the job through them, Perry Shoe. So I worked there for not that long, maybe a year, 8-9 months around there. Then I moved to another field in the electronic field because I wanted to do better for myself and I tried. But I remember when I worked on the Perry Shoe, it was I have a friend there was Dimas Spinwa. He was helping me and my husband getting to the job, and he gave me a good job. And I wasn't working at piecework there. I was assisting to the people, giving threads and needles, what they need for the machines. And I work on a conveyor, so it wasn't bad at all. The worst thing was I was here on the winter, the blizzard 1978. So I remember walking from Central Street in piles of snow. That's my first job.
My first job was Simon Shoe, and that was on Market Street. I started there at the age of 16. I was a bad girl that didn't want to go to school. And then I went to Perry Shoe, and I was there for 13 years. And I realized this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I put myself into hairdressing school. And I was a hairdresser for over 40 years. Owned my own shop for 25 years. A successful, very little shop, but very successful. I had the pleasure of meeting Alicia Saab, and she worked for me for 10 years, side by side. Best time of our lives. And now I'm retired. I have 3 beautiful children that I made them go to school. They loved school. And they all, attorney John Mello, attorney Stephanie Mello, and Jason Mello, an engineer. So America is one of the best countries in the world if you really want to succeed and make something of yourself and work hard. This is the country to do it in.
My experience here in the States, I came from Portugal, Graciosa, like I said before, and I went to school, to high school for 3 years. Then after 3 years, I was 15 years old. I went to Grishu, and I worked there for 10 years. Then from there, I moved on to an electronic company in Wilmington, used to be Computer Graphic, which I worked there for another 10 years. And now I've been working for myself for about 35 years.
Great. Thank you so much. So our next question is a little bit more about the working conditions at your first job and your first couple jobs in the factories. So if anyone wanted to tell us a little bit more about what the working conditions were like for example, how many hours you worked, or some of the more technical aspects of what you actually did, and how you felt about the working conditions while you were working in these factories.
And how much they were paid.
And how much you were paid.
How much you were paid an hour.
Well, I used to work at the shoe shop. I used to make $2.30 an hour, and I used to work 13 hours overtime. I used to bring home $100. My mother used to work in the shoe shop at the same time. She used to work for 40 hours. She used to take home $75. But those $75 at the time, we used to buy a full cart of food for the whole week for $20. and we used to pay rent. We used to live, the first house we used to live, it used to be in Elm Street. We paid $10 a week for living there. Electricity bill used to be every 3 months, now you pay every month. The taxes for the house used to be once a year, now you pay 4 times a year. The gas bill used to be every 3 months too, now it's every month. And it's like, everything goes up.
I started, my pay was $1.20 an hour. That I used to do piecework. I was a stitcher, so the more you did, the more shoes you stitched, the more money you got. That's why I went to hairdressing school.
Like when I started working in Berry Shoe, I used to make $1 something. I'm not sure exactly, but it was like $1 something. And I used to, our first apartment I used to pay $17 a week, and I remember like going to that stores in the corner, Denny's, I think it was $25. You can buy the food for the whole week, so it was kind of very different from now, and that in.
I started at Gray Shoe back in early stage of 77, because I arrived here 76 on Christmas Eve. So I started early 77 on Gray Shoe at $2.30 an hour also, after I get my Social Security number. The environment, like, you know, we do know, it was very old buildings, but the conditions weren't too bad. The conditions were, you know, as bad as I heard. There was John Fabrics and other places that I heard conditions were horrible. No, it wasn't too bad at all. Then when I moved to Majolite, it was a very old building also. The conditions, yeah, there was no AC. I mean, it's not like nowadays all the electronic companies, they have ACs. You have to have AC because of the digital components and stuff. So, but I'm sorry, humidity, yeah, humidity will kill the electronics. Yeah.
But the people, what about them?
The people, yes, we couldn't complain because yes, we're sweating, doing our thing, get our jobs done, but we didn't go nowhere, complain. So we just had to do it. And yes, we had to work 40 hours. And like Luis said, for us to see a check of $100, yeah, we have to put in a few hours of overtime. But like he said, that $100 would go far back then. And you could pay rent, you could pay market basket. Used to be Timbers, well now it's market. But and then you buy a car and you move on. That $100 was going far back then. And now it's a total different story.
When I started press, I started $3.25 an hour. The conditions in there was pretty bad, especially when I started in Lawrence. It was an old building and very hot in the manufacturing area. Package department was not so bad, but it was still hot. When we moved to the new building in Lowell, the package department in receiving and shipping was AC, but manufacture was real hot, probably 120 degrees. some of the guys were on manufacturing, they had to be there all day. They probably went from the morning to, for at least 8 hours they worked. They were soaking wet because it was very, very humid and hot. Sometimes those machines broke down, those dryers, they had to get inside there, probably 140 degrees some of the time. So the condition wasn't that good, but we had a lot of Portuguese, most of us are Portuguese people. They were very dedicated and very hard workers. And they just kept doing the job. So that's basically the experience we had of it.
Thank you very much. Great. All right, thank you very much for sharing that. So in light of conversation about the safety conditions and the various experiences you all had working in the factories, did you see the work that you had done as an opportunity? Was it ever something you dreaded doing, or was it something that you and your family saw as kind of this, this wonderful opportunity that you had been given? How did you view the work that you did in the factories?
I view, like when I worked on a parachute and I moved to the electronics field, and I see
Which
opportunity.
company? Which electronics company?
Electronics, I started work Wang Laboratories that time. And it was like after I started in Wang Laboratories in 1979. So I came to America in 77, 79 I was already on Wang. I always want to do better for myself, and I see that the electronics that time was an opportunity to grow. And I went there. I remember I went to interview there. I didn't know how to speak much English. I know a little basic things, but even now I don't speak that well. But so I remember going. A friend of mine went with me to the interview, and I just get the job. And I started as an assembler there. And after a couple months, I passed. I guess I did a good job, and I went to a tester, and after years I went to a technician, and then when closes in Lowell, like around 2000s, around there. But I was very lucky because I was in an apartment. I started work there to the security systems. I work for the federal government as we do special like laptops, computers, telephones, printers, everything security for the safety of our country, America, and also for international. So I was there. But the wing stopped. But that department we still keep as a group, and we've been sold to Wang Global, BAE, Getronics. We passed through companies, but we still keep the same department because it was specified as security systems. And I have my clearance because to work there, that time we need a clearance. And I'm very proud to say I worked over there for 44 years. Starting from Wang, different companies, but it was 44 years. I just retired in last January. So I was very lucky, and I was proud the job I do, and I retired as a team leader. So those years I went different steps, but it was my last job was a team leader. I worked for 10 to 15 people under my responsibility. And I did the best I can, and I did my life in America. I don't know, maybe this comes later, the question.
Thank you very much.
we can go to the next question if anyone doesn't.
I can also repeat the question.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So the work that you had done in the factory, was it something that you felt fortunate to do, or was it something that you ever dreaded? Was it something you viewed as an opportunity? How did you view the work that you had done in the factory?
No, I never dreaded it. That back then, you know, it was a way of life that most people did that didn't go to school. No, I had no complaints about the way they treated us. I mean, I was very young, but no complaints. It was a good, we worked with a lot of Portuguese people. It was like a family. A lot of families, mothers, fathers, daughters, you know, brothers, all worked together. So it was a good atmosphere. No complaints.
When I first started, I didn't think I was going to last that long with the company. It wasn't my intention to be too long. I wanted to do something else. I had my eyes set for electronics and stuff. But after a while, you know, the way they treated me, they sent me out to Chicago to take some management courses and all kinds of stuff. And you know, the money was good, and then I joined after a while. You know, then I stayed, and I was fortunate that I had that job, and I made good money, and it was good. But I enjoyed it.
And when we making the product to factory, we could see that where it was going more or less. We're going to a shoe industry. There was a lot of shoe business back then. It was shoe business in Lowell, Lawrence, and we had a few other down in South and far away in the West Coast also. We could see, where our goods were going, and out in the field they were well taken in, and that's why one of the reasons why it keeps a small company going. And over the years, that shoe business died, basically died. Just like used to do a lot of stuff for New Balance, and those business basically dead nowadays because they're buying everything from overseas, cheaper labor and stuff. With the company that I'm working now, we have different fields. We on the automotive industry, we are on medical supply. So it was a change over the years because of the shoe industry went away, and we have to adapt ourselves to a different kind of business. We went to, like I said, different fields: automotive, medical, contract coding, and so on. So yes, we see our product very well taken out there, and that's what keeps us on business.
At the shoe factory, we had a store there which we used to sell the shoes with a little defected on them. And a pair of shoes at the factory used to be sold for $25 a pair, which today you can buy a pair of shoes for $10 made in China, Korea. Yeah, and it's ridiculous. The problem with all the shoe shops went away was because we used to work in the shoe shops. We used to have all these groups of people coming in, Chinese people, with cameras, take pictures of our work, and they used to take all our jobs away from us here. That's what it ended up to. We had no more shoe shops here. We just get all these shoes order from, we got in the stores, they're from these different places, not even made in the US anymore.
Yeah, a lot has changed since these factories were being used. So we are almost out of time. So I wanted to give the audience a chance to ask any questions if anyone had any questions. I do have one more question we could ask, but I wanted to give a chance first to see if anyone had a question. Yes, Carlos.
Great panel today. Learned a lot. Really enjoyed hearing everyone's stories. The question I have, we've been talking about cost of living at the time, earning. Something I've always been intrigued about is how our immigrants were able to buy homes in a short period of time. Could you share how long it took you to buy your first home and what you paid for it at the time?
Great question, thank you.
My father bought his first house within a year. He paid $11,000 for it, which he used to work for Prince Macaroni. And he went in one day, he saw the house in the corner of Lawrence Street and Watson Street. He saw the house there was for itself for my father was $10,000. So my father then had the money, he liked the house. He went into the factory, Mr. Pellegrino, he told him that he liked the house. He wanted to buy that house. And Mr. Pellegrino says, well, I'll see. Then the next day, he went up to him, he gave him the keys, and he says, the house is yours for $12,000. Here's the key. And you pay for the house whenever you can. So my father used to work for him, he used to do all his gardens and everything. Within 1 year, he paid for the house.
Wow.
In these days, you buy a house, you die and you still own the house. You still pay for the house. All these people are getting married right now. They getting married into this $400,000 or $500,000. This they'll never be able to pay for.
We all have to answer this question.
Anyone who wants
Me and my husband, we bought our first house 5 years after we here in the United States. So we came 77 in 1982. We bought our first house in Lowell, and it was for $38,000 around there. So and we, like he said, we pay. We don't want to pay. We want to pay as fast as we can. Mm-hmm. So maybe after 10 years, or we pay it off. I'm not sure. And then we build another one in another town in Kingsborough, and we work hard and try to pay as much as we can, and that's our life. You know, we have a daughter too, that time, and we put her through school, to college, and that's where we work hard on this country. But then we have an opportunity for it. And my daughter, I have a daughter and 2 grandchildren. We love very much. My daughter is a VP Financing Controller and in Boston. So I think we did good so far with help of God. Because my faith is the first thing too.
I bought my first house in 1980 in Belleville, New Hampshire, which I still live in it, and it has been paid for.
Does anybody else have a question? Yes, absolutely.
Hi. So, what do you all think was the most difficult part about working in a factory when you came to the United States? What was the hardest part, and then what was the best part?
That's a really good question.
I speak for myself, but the hardest part was not spending enough time with the kids. That was the hardest part. The best part was, this is what you come to this country for, to improve your life. But you buy a house and you send your kids to school, and this is the country to hope for. I mean, and this so far but the hardest part was not spending enough time with the family. And if you wanted to bring home a half decent amount of money, and you had to work overtime, and that was the hardest part, not spending enough time with your kids and the family.
I agree. That's the sacrifice you make in this country is, if you want to get somewhere, you have to work hard, and you lose a lot of time with your family. The kids have to go out to babysitters, that's the hardest part. Other than that, it's a wonderful country, but if you want to get ahead, you have to sacrifice some things. Then nothing comes easy.
Yeah, the hardest part was to not able to do a lot of things you want to do. Especially in my case, I was in charge 24 hours a day, so I always had a hard time to go anywhere because I could have been called anytime, day or night. But again, that's if you want to get ahead, if you're going to get money, if you're going to be successful, that's the rule I took. I'm glad I did.
Any other questions from the audience? Yes, absolutely.
2 questions. John, why did you come Christmas Eve? You were 65 days available to you.
Good question. I was back in May of that year, 1976. I came with the soccer team, and I get into a relationship. And at the time, there was a few options, that I could take. One of the options was to stay in the States, and I didn't want to go on that route to stay when I was visiting. That would have put my soccer team that I came with in a bad list. So discussion at the time was, I'll go back with the team if this is going between me and my ex. If this is serious, I feel we're serious about this, then let's do it the right way. So I went back with the team. Then my ex went over to the Graciosa. We got married by justice of the peace, so we could proceed with the visa and the request from the Portuguese consul in São Miguel. That was in August. That was in August 1976, and at that time, it was amazing, how it went so quick, and the last week of December, I was in São Miguel picking up my visa and flying to the States, and I arrived here December 24th. 11:30 at night. That answers your question.
And then the second question was regarding family. Did you immigrate with family? Did you leave family behind? And I guess this is open to everyone. And remittances. Now we see various waves of immigration. We know that remittances, money, sending back money to their families and their home countries, makes up a good portion of their earning. You know, if you had left family behind, were you sending money back regularly to help support your family? I'm sure you all sent envelopes at Christmas time. Some envelopes made it, some didn't. But how about remittances and family?
At the time, $28 was a lot. That's what I had in my pocket. I was fortunate to grow up on an orphanage house, and they really took care of me when I was there. Worked on a farm, went to school by my own, and right around the block from the orphanage house where I was staying. And I managed to save some a few scoots back then, which was enough to buy a speedy bicycle and get myself over the States. And I was very fortunate when I arrived here. I didn't basically, yes, I left brothers and a sister back in the islands. I am the youngest one of all of them. And when I arrived in the States, I was very fortunate. I had brother-in-laws already here, and they were already in the States for a few years. So that helped me throughout the process, adapting and move on. And I also had father-in-laws and in-laws that were settled here in Lowell already, so that helped a lot.
Anybody else can speak?
The way I came into this country was my grandmother was born here in the 1800s, my mom's mom. And my dad had a brother that was born in Lawrence. And he's the one, my uncle was the one that did the paperwork for my father, his brother, to come. And we had I had two aunts, two of my father's sisters that were here waiting for us. We got here to Lowell, and we're very fortunate. We had an apartment ready with everything in it. Lived across the street from one of my father's sisters. So I've had roots here in the States since the 1800s. My grandmother was born in Back Central Street in Lowell.
You didn't have to send money back.
So we didn't know. We came as a family.
I think what
And,
I was trying to say is like a lot of people come here by themselves, but you guys came at
Right.
a young age.
yeah,
So you came with your parents, so you didn't have to like send money to Portugal.
no.
I mean,
Yeah.
some people do. Like I came here when I was 18, so I went to college and I worked 3 jobs, and I used to send money to my mom because she lived there, you know, and I had to help her because my father passed away while I came here, and then I had to send her money to pay for the house that she still
Right.
owed. So I'm in a different category.
Right.
You guys came, the family, young age, 12. So, you know, I get it that you didn't have to send money there.
Right,
but
right.
I
Yeah,
think
we were
that's
very
what he was trying
fortunate.
to say,
Yeah, like I said, yeah.
Yeah.
My grandmother was already from here. And then went back to Graciosa at the age of 9, my grandmother, and never came back to America ever again. And I came here at 9
Yes.
when she, yeah.
And I came to America. My family don't immigrate to America. My husband did. He's my boyfriend that time. So he came to Lowell. He has a sister in Kentucky and an uncle here in Lowell. And that's what I came. He went there. He was here in 1976. He immigrated, and he went back 8 months later. And then we get married that time. And then so I immigrate to America for love, not. So my parents still live there. I mean, now they passed away, but they live there. And luckily, I don't have to send money there. has a farm, and they are always, not rich, but they comfortable. So that's.
Thank you.
My brother married to a girl from she was American citizen. So he was here like 5 years before we came, which I came with my parents and my sisters. And we didn't have to send any money back. We had money to pay the tickets on the way here, and when they left here, was just two sisters. They were old and married. We took care of the expenses.
Yes, another question.
Hi, I have a question for the panel. My name is Ray Espinola. In Portuguese, it would be Oi, but none of my teachers could pronounce it when I was younger, so they converted it to Ray. My Lisa became Alicia. My classmates since kindergarten. And my cousin, hello, Prima. My adorable cousin, Filomena. Hello, Senora. An old neighbor whom I've seen, Elm Street. So a lot of the people I recognize by face, but I don't know by name. But I think it's important to point out, and Filomena brought this up, because I know she's very proud of her children, just like my parents are of theirs. The theme here is that this panel is being hosted at University of Massachusetts in Lowell, and during that era, because we immigrated, my family and I immigrated from Terceira in the Azores in January of 1967. And if you ask why January, I have no idea. It was just, I was 4 years old, so I have hardly any recollection of it. But the theme that I wanted to highlight, and again, Filomena highlighted, spoke about it eloquently, is the theme of education. And that is that this generation, my parents included, they had no choice as far as what they did, where they worked, how much they get paid, where they lived. You lived on Back Central, somewhere in Back Central, like Elm Street, or North Street, other streets. And that was our community. That was our little island, if you will. But what I've seen as a common theme, and what I think I'm especially proud of, and I'd like the panel to discuss it, and I'm sorry, Senora, Cidália. She spoke of her daughter who went to college and now has a finance position in Boston. I was fortunate to attend college, as was one of my older sisters from the neighborhood. And I think that's really the legacy of the immigrant experience that I am, one of the ones that I'm most proud of, is that the sacrifices that this generation did to enable their children and ultimately their grandchildren then to pursue the pursuit of something that has literally been degraded recently, and that is called the American dream. Let me tell you, it's still alive and well, and it's only going to get better, so I won't politicize it any further. But I'd like the panel to talk about the role of education, because I know firsthand that my parents had no chance at an education in the Azores. That when we immigrated, that was one of the main drivers, if you will, for the immigration, was for their children to have the opportunities that they did. And I'd be curious to hear how the panel comments on that. So thank you.
Thank you.
So like I said, it was hard. We worked here, and I remember when my daughter finished college, when my daughter finished high school, she's a valedictorian that time, and she had 4 years scholarship paid by, but she was a good student, and she applies to different college, and she always got accepted. And I remember she told me, I would like to go to different college, but if you cannot afford, I'd stay around in UMass. And I said, okay, do whatever you want. At that time, my husband was laid off that time, and my husband said, "No, if you want to go, you go. We'll manage, and we'll find another job, and you will go." And she did too. We put her on the. She went to go to Babson College, and that time it wasn't cheap, not even more, but that time it wasn't cheap. But she did. She had a scholarship, and she worked. She worked. She never lost the scholarship, and she did good. And 6 months when she graduated, she already has a job. They offer her a job, and this is a very hard for me and for my husband. We work all the overtime, and we go through all these steps, but we did it, and now I'm very proud of her, and everything was worked out.
A lot of sacrifices, yeah. And you always want your children to do better than you did.
Yeah.
You know, and my John was the first generation that went to college. He was the first one. Nobody ever had gone to college before him. We were lucky we could read and write. And your parents too, Roy, you know, that's why I say we complain about this country. This is the country, one of the best countries in the world. You have to work hard, and we're going through bad ups and downs, but it's still the best country in the world. If you want to work hard, you can succeed anything. You know? That's why this is my country. I love America. I'm from Graciosa, but this is my country now. This is where I made my family. And I had no choice of coming here, but I'm glad my parents decided to come here.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak to that? No problem.
All right, well, I think we're just about right on time for the end of the panel. So I just want to say thank you again to all our panelists. It's been really amazing to hear your stories and to hear more about your life when you came here to Lowell, and to tell us all more about all your jobs and everything.
José Lobo, who is a well-known Portuguese journalist and who was here in the fall of 2021 when her husband, Pedro Lutria, whose exhibit is on the first floor that we'll visit at the end of the colloquium, was here as a visiting professor for the Gulbenkian Saab visiting professor in Portuguese Studies. And to show you, when you develop a good academic program, things happen that you have no idea will happen. This is the great thing, is when you hire first-rate people, when you bring exciting people to something, they themselves bring other exciting people along. And so it's great when you develop a program and then you just see it flourish on its own. You don't have to do anything, it just sort of happens. And so Cláudia, this is a twofer, as they say. So, you know, we hired Pedro and we got Cláudia, that Pedro, of course, would call his better half, no doubt. And so Cláudia is going to speak about what happened in the 1970s of Portuguese technicians in factories in Portugal, in textile factories, and how and why and how they came to Lowell. So it's great. She did, while she was here, she conducted 17 oral history interviews of Portuguese in Lowell. And that collection, we're still working on that to be able to put that on the Portuguese American Digital Archive. So we're fortunate for the great work that she's done, and we look forward to her presentation.
Thank you so much. Good morning. It is with great pleasure that I'm with you today from Lisbon. I'm in Lisbon. It's a really great pleasure to be with you. It's a great pleasure, but my voice isn't great. I'm sorry. Well, thank you so much, Professor Frank Souza, for the invitation. It's really a pleasure. I've been, I've learned so much being in Lowell. It was an amazing experience, and I hope we can keep this marriage going on. I would like to invite you now. I would like to invite you to travel with me in space and in time and to come to Portugal, mainland Portugal in the 1970s. I'm sorry. Okay, here it goes.
You can see the waves.
So we have to cross the Atlantic Ocean, fly over the Azores, and arrive in that little red spot up in the north of the country. It is the city of Covilhã. Covilhã is located on the slopes of Serra da Estrela, the highest point in mainland Portugal. Thanks to the water descending the mountain, which supplied energy to the factories and the wool gathered from the sheep, Covilhã was, until the 1960s, the most important textile industry hub in Portugal. In 1970, the city had around 60,000 residents, half the number of Lowell's population at the same time. In 1973, there were 1,770 loops in operation, and the factories employed almost 9,000 people. However, just as was happening in Lowell, the textile industry in Covilhã was entering a period of decline. In fact, the history of Lowell and Covilhã has many points in common. Look at these two looms. The one on the left is from Covilhã, the one on the right from Lowell. Both are now housed in very similar venues, former factories that have been converted into museums. But there was something that, in 1974, distinguished the two cities. In Lowell, there was a shortage of textile workers, while in Covilhã, there were the first signs that unemployment was looming. Covilhã had an excellent industrial school that trains specialized workers. In 1973, there were 104 textile companies operating in Lowell. Lana Fabril was one of the largest. Around 400 people worked here. João Ferreira was one of the workers at Lana Fabril. Like many others from this poor region of Portugal, he began working at a very young age. He lost his mother at the age of 11 and started working shortly afterward. His father also worked in the wool industry. João Ferreira married Josefina in 1956. He fell in love with her long before words were exchanged. 3 years after marriage, he started working at Lana Fabril. Already married and father to Filomena, their first daughter, João decided to father himself. He enrolled at the Covilhã Industrial School, a vocational school where trades related to wool manufacturing were taught, studying at night. From weaver, he became a loom fixer, and thus he rose to be the supervisor of the weaving section at Lana Fabril. He was responsible for close to 60 people. João Ferreira had a good monthly salary, 7,500 escudos, more than double the minimum wage salary in Portugal. Well, in Portugal, minimum wage exists only since the revolution of 25 de Abril in 1974. João Ferreira's monthly salary was equivalent to $312. Despite having a good salary and a good position, and being highly regarded by his employers, and despite being 44 years old, João Ferreira decided to answer an advertisement in a local newspaper, Notícias de Covilhã, which was looking for textile workers for Lowell. João must have sensed that the situation in the textile sector in Portugal was going to get more complicated, which later proved to be true. So, but how did a factory in Lowell go about hiring labor from across the Atlantic? Well, the key to that answer is Father João da Silva. Father João da Silva was born in Minas da Panasqueira, near Covilhã. He had arrived in the States in 1947 because priests were needed for the Portuguese communities in Massachusetts. For 30 years, he was the priest at St. Anthony's Church in Lowell. It was he that took out the advertisement in Jornal de Covilhã asking for textile workers. We don't know how the owners of UMass came to contact him, but we do know how João Ferreira met Father João da Silva. When João Ferreira saw the ad in the newspaper, he went to see a friend of his, car mechanic who had immigrated to the US, to ask him if life was good in America. The friend told him that the best way to know was to speak with Father João, who by coincidence was on vacation in Portugal. The conversation must have gone really well, as João Ferreira thought that coming to the US was the right way forward. His employers were surprised when João Ferreira invited them to the factory canteen to make a toast with port wine because he was leaving for America. This is going badly, and I need to protect my family, he told the owner of Lã of Abril. On May 29, 1975, João Ferreira left Covilhã for Boston, but he wasn't alone. João Ferreira took other men to work at UMass Textiles. Ted Larter, the owner of the mill, struggling with the textile labor shortage in the US, had hired undocumented Colombian loom fixers in 1970. This time, it was the turn of the Portuguese, and the Boston lawyer was hired to handle the workers and their families' immigration papers. When they arrived, they all had the green card. The first 3 or 4 workers were settled into an apartment provided by UMass. João Matos was one of the men that flew in with João Ferreira. Let's see what Notícias de Covilhã published on June 7, 1975. Our dear friend Mr. João Matos, a worker in the wool industry, bid us farewell as he left for the United States, where he will continue to work. Mr. João Matos asked us to announce in the newspaper that he is using these means to say goodbye to his friends and fellow countrymen, offering his services in Boston. In the following months, more textile workers chosen by João Ferreira arrived in Lowell, coming from Covilhã. We know that in 1975, 16 men and 43 women left the district of Castelo Branco, where Covilhã is located, who emigrated to the US. But we don't know how many of those people must have come to work in Lowell. Well, till now we have managed to, we have managed to identify these 8 names so far. Even if it was just these 8 men, and we are pretty sure there were much more, it ended up being a significant number of people, as almost all of them took their families. João Ferreira family was the first to arrive on August the 1st, on 1975. Josefina had to wait for their daughters to finish school before they could travel to Lowell. Filomena had completed high school that year. When they arrived, the house where they were going to live in back central was not ready. So they were welcomed by the family of one of her husband's colleagues. It was the Velosa family from Madeira. When they finally moved, the Ferreira family moved into their own home, Mrs. Velosa offered Josefina plates and dishes. In Portugal, Josefina was a housewife. But like many other women that came from Covilhã, that changed when she arrived. She first worked in a shoe factory, then in a medical supplies factory, always doing piecework. She was fast. 3 years ago, at 96 years of age, Josefina told us, laughing, that when her husband didn't do overtime, she sometimes earned more than him. But there were very few times when João Ferreira did not work overtime. Josefina Ferreira and their youngest daughter, Dulce, still remember what João Ferreira used to say about the conditions he found in Lowell's factories. Let's listen.
Olha, eu deixei uma fábrica tão limpa, tão arrumada, com tanta responsabilidade e venho para aqui para uma porcaria. Ele considerou aqui as máquinas mais modernas e mais novas quando ele chegou aqui, mas tinham mais problemas, havia muito mais problemas, e uma das razões também era por causa da língua, que era as pessoas aí a falar uns com os outros. Na Lanó Fabril, na Covilhã, tinha mais organização e ele tinha uma posição também como que era supervisor, ele tratava.
When one of the other men, Manuel Mota, arrived in the summer of 1975, he went to work for Joan Fabrics. Mário Barroso and Carlos Gabriel also worked at the same company. Later, João Ferreira would also work there. He became a supervisor at Joan Fabrics. Manuel Mota's wife and children arrived on February the 7th, 1976, as remembered by one of his sons, Jorge, which is highlighted in this picture. Manuel Mota started working very early, probably at the age of 8. His parents had him doing spools and filling bobbins at the textile factory in Covilhã. When he decided to come to the US at the age of 37, Manuel Mota had already worked in Germany. Portugal had a lot of immigrants during the 60s, and Manuel Mota was one of them. Manuel Mota's sons, Jorge, that we are seeing in the picture, arrived in the US with a phrase from his father in his mind. "I have a gift for you," his father had told him on the phone. Jorge thought it would be a car, as he was already 6 years and a half. In the end, the gift was a job. George arrived on a Saturday, and by Monday, he was working at the car wash owned by a Portuguese man, who, it was later discovered, kept the workers' deductions instead of paying them to the government. João Ferreira managed to bring 2 of his brothers to the US, who also worked in the textile industry. Zeferino Carlos returned to Covilhã sometime after arriving in Lowell because his wife did not adapt, and he was not the only one to return. However, Manuel, who was a weaver in Covilhã, stayed with his family in the United States. It was very difficult, recalls one of his sons, Peter. "My father worked so much that he sometimes worked 2 weeks in one. With the money saved, Manuel Ferreira fulfilled his dream of buying an apartment in Lisbon and moved there when he retired in 2000. Both Manuel Ferreira and Manuel Mota returned to Portugal after retiring, but their children stayed in the United States. Manuel Ferreira used to say he came to give his children to America, and he was right. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you very much to all the people that I've interviewed. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Claudia, can you take a couple of questions if anyone has questions in the audience?
Yes, I would be glad to.
Would anyone have any questions? Have a question to ask?
No, we don't. We know Schumann well and the wife.
They lived at my house.
They lived at your house?
That's what they
Wow.
did. They went to my shop for 40 years.
I just said, just been here till I gave up hairdressing.
Church. Yeah, that's my church.
Claudia, did you hear that they lived with Lisa Saab's house? Who lived with Senhor Ferreira lived at Lisa's house?
Yes.
Did you know this?
Really?
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
On Chapel Street. Yeah. The family Dawson, from mine that we used to call it, well,
And we did all they had. We did should have played us hair. Every week. Should have played used to go every Saturday to get her hair done.
And Senhora Ferreira every week had her hair coiffed by the great coiffing duo.
And Sue Clayton used to go there, yeah. Imagine that.
Yeah.
What a small
And they
world.
went to the senior center. Yeah.
And then they went to the senior center. So I think you have some more oral history to do about this project. Any other comments, questions? Yes.
In your interviews, did you get a sense of how many of the immigrant community coming over that you studied ended up going back to retire to Portugal?
So what percentage went back to retire in Portugal?
The ones that she interviewed.
So there were some people that arrived in the States, and the work was tough and it was difficult to adapt mainly because people didn't speak Portuguese, and because we were very attached to our families, and it was difficult for some people to live abroad with no family. So some of the men came back shortly after arriving in Lowell. I don't know how long they stayed in Lowell, but so some of them came back sometime after arriving, and then others stayed, and some of them, when they retired, they came back to Portugal, and some of them also stayed in Lowell or in the States. I do not have numbers, but I do know that people that came back regret now not having their families, their sons and their daughters with them. I spoke with one of the people, and she said, if I knew what I know today, I wouldn't have been back. I would have stayed in Lowell.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments, questions? And of course, this is go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask if someone knows names of other people. I would be very glad to know those names and try to find out more. I'm going to interview the son of António Ascensão next week, so I'm still working on this, and I will be very glad to know if you could, anyone help me.
Can Lisa and Filomena help, or anyone else? Any other names of people who were here with that group?
No, it was just, no, I didn't recognize any other names from that group.
They only know those whose hair they coiffed.
If we saw a picture, maybe. Yeah, but so young people to them.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, the book from that listed, it's basically Josh and Son, that I know who he is.
You have pictures of these people?
I have like pictures of alums from Holy Ghost when I was there.
We probably know about that, but we don't know by name.
Okay, so Claudia, maybe you can share the list of those people you already know of, and share with Natalia, and Natalia, maybe you can get in touch with Lisa and Filomena.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty.
I just like to say, I didn't write it down, but now that we're speaking, there's also something interesting, is that Lena Fabril, where Sr. Ferreira worked, and many of these men worked, shut down in the 80s, I think. And when Lancet and John are not running anymore, so in Covilhã happened the same that happened in Lowell, almost at the same time, and I think it's very interesting, the two cities living the same problems.
Yeah. It says something about what's going on internationally and how manufacturing was so affected. By the late 80s, manufacturing had gone down like 40% in the U.S. So we're seeing sort of a microcosm of what was a wider experience internationally. So it's very interesting. So thank you, Cláudia. It was great to have you with us. I think
well,
thank you so much. Round of applause. Documents. That's how you write history. This is why nobody knows hardly anything about the Aztecs or about some of these Mesoamerican cultures. They didn't have a written language that we can read today. So the documentation of an experience is absolutely fundamental to keep it going in perpetuity. And so this is the importance of the archives. It's the importance of having Nicole Catarino now as the new archivist since June. And please visit the Portuguese American Digital Archives. You'll be astonished at what has been collected so far.
Thank you. Great. Hi, everyone. I think a lot of you in here know me already, but my name is Nikki Tantum, and I was the first archivist on the Portuguese American Digital Archive. I'm still at UMass Lowell as a Digital Initiatives Archivist, and I'm supervising Nicole. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. I'm Nicole Catarino. It is such a pleasure to meet all of you. Some of you I've met over Zoom, some of you I'm meeting for the first time, so this is such an honor. I am the new digital archivist for the Portuguese American Digital Archive, and I've been taught and mentored very well by Nikki. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be here and to talk about the archives with you today. Frank did an amazing job stressing the importance of the archives, especially in our community, just to, ensure that the history and the lives of the Portuguese American community is kept alive, especially as everything changes so much in Lowell. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today.
And I always do like to say we are both Portuguese.
Yes.
But neither of us did grow up here, though. So I'm from New Jersey and she's from Connecticut. So other Portuguese communities, as you all know, we grew up in strong Portuguese communities there. But we've loved learning more about the community here and very attached to the Lowell Portuguese community now. So just to give a brief overview of the Portuguese American Digital Archive. So we are collecting items in the greater Boston area. It's a collaboration between UMass Lowell's Saab Center for Portuguese Studies and the Center for Lowell History, which is part of the libraries at UMass Lowell, and that's where we are located. It was funded by the William M. Wood Foundation. Both grants, we had one. The first one was 3 years, and then the second one as well that we just received more recently. So we collect and preserve archival resources associated with Portuguese communities. This includes items from families, individuals, businesses, social clubs, different church parishes, and other organizations. We've really collected from a wide variety of people in the community. And our goal is to really increase access to local Portuguese history, both for the community itself, so you all can see the amazing history of what your own community has done in the area and to celebrate that, but also for study and for research, so that researchers around the world can access this website, which of course is available online. So it's very important to us as digital archivists that items are as accessible as possible so that you don't always have to come in physically to UMass Lowell to look at the items, but you can just sign right online and see thousands and thousands of items that represent the important history here. So for the first grant, which is the one I was the archivist on, it was from 2021 to 2023. We focused on the towns of Lowell, Lawrence, Hudson, and Gloucester. And we provided access to over 3,600 historical items just in that first 3 years. I think we've grown to almost 1,000 more since Nicole has been here as well. But this includes all types of items, so documents, photos, films, music recordings, newspaper articles, physical items, and more. We really have run the gamut of all types of items so far on PADA. I just put a few of our more unique items on here just to give a taste, but there are literally, as you can see, thousands of more items. A really great collection we have, the Holy Ghost Society allowed us to borrow their films from the 60s and 70s to get them digitized. So we returned those back to them, but now we have the digital versions that are all on YouTube. These are really amazing because they show Christmas parties like this one, or Halloween parties, or the balls, the queens as well. So you can go on there and see. About half of them have sound too, so you'll probably see tons of people. I think for the New Year's one or the Christmas one, they interview everyone as they walk in, so everyone has to say hi. So it's a lot of people even I recognize. A really great music collection we have is the Oliveira family music collection, which was a family of brothers who they pretty much all played music, and we digitized a bunch of audio reels and cassette tapes from that family. They again let us borrow them. So those are all on the Portuguese American Digital Archive as well. We digitized the entire St. Anthony's Church archives. Again, it's physically still there, but we were able to borrow it with permission from the church and digitize those. And actually, Tony Sampis, our head archivist, took this beautiful photo of the trowel here that was used in the opening of the church itself. And then another unique collection is the Manuel Espiritu Santo collection, where he has a lot of soccer items. I'm a big soccer fan, so this was the first time we got soccer items on the archive, and I was really excited. And again, Tony Sampis helped us take these photos of some items. We have soccer balls as well that are photographed, but I really love this sweatshirt for the Lusitanos that were very well-known champions throughout the 80s. They're very proud.
So Nikki left me some enormous shoes to fill when I came in for the second grant earlier in June. And so with the second grant, we began to branch out into other areas of the greater Boston area, including the Cambridge and Peabody area, which is where I now focus. And so this has allowed us to do numerous different things that will be amazing for the archive, but one of the biggest ones is that we've begun preserving the history of the Portuguese Benefit Society of Our Lady of Help in Peabody, which was founded in 1904 before Peabody even existed as a city. And in addition to this, of course, our work continues in Lowell and Lawrence and Hudson and all these other amazing areas, with additional collections from Lisbon as well, now finding a home in our archive, including the Dom Henrique Jose Reed de Silva letters, or also known as Bishop de Silva, who was the priest at the St. Anthony's Church from 1911 to, I believe, 1924, if I'm remembering that correctly. This is his papers for I believe a citizenship from the Consul Generate, the Consulate General. And we have also begun to collect the Lowell Vice Consul collection from the archive of the Instituto Diplomática do Ministério de Negócios Estrangeiros. So that is very exciting. That is hopefully something that we'll begin working on in the new year. And then, of course, as always, we're working to preserve more family and personal collections from families in the Cambridge and Peabody area. And so if any of you have family, know families, know people in the Cambridge and Peabody area who would love to donate their personal collections to our archive, please be in touch, because that is definitely something we would love to preserve again for future generations. And so to conclude our little presentation, I figured I'd kind of show you a tour around the archive so you know what it looks like and how to use it, since it can be very overwhelming given that we do have almost 4,000 items here. Let me see. There we go. So this will be the opening page that you find when you come onto our website, and there's a couple different ways that you're able to view what we have here at POTA. So you can view it by collection, and you can see the various different families, organizations, businesses, etc. that we have digitized. So you can certainly take a look that way. Another way would be to, if you have a certain time period in mind.
That's amazing that you can do that. Wow.
If you have a certain time period in mind, say you're looking for family members or a certain event or anything in particular, Nikki made this amazing page that sorts it by the various decades. So you can search that way as well. Or if you maybe don't know what you're looking for, but you're kind of searching for ideas, we also have this wonderful page of subjects where everything is listed. So let's say you're looking specifically for bullfights. We do have a subject heading specifically for that, so you can find all the amazing videos and flyers and things like that. We have it sorted by music. We have various different oral histories. We have, truly a myriad of things you could possibly search for. So that's another way to look for things. And maybe one of the cooler things on the map, or on the website, is the map, which always takes a few seconds to load. But you can sort by area. So if you would like to see the true extent of our collection, eventually, hopefully, some of the points will appear. There they go. So you can see, obviously, the majority of our collection, about 1,000 items, 1,500 I should say, come from the Lowell area. But even if we begin to zoom out, you can kind of see our reach goes all around the world, which is fascinating. Thanks especially to the Bishop de Silva collection, because he traveled quite a bit. But yeah, so you can search by this as well and see where various other Portuguese American communities might be located around the New England and also the general area. But yeah, specifically when you go to view a collection, let's say we're going to go look at the Manuel Espírito Santo collection, because we're all big soccer fans here. You can scroll down. I may have actually already missed it. That's okay. We'll keep looking.
I think it was on the first page.
It was on the first page.
Like on the top, right?
Thank you so much. There it is. I'm glad somebody brought their glasses today. I did not. So this will give you a bit of an overview. This is what we call our biographical sketch. So this will give you a bit of the history of the collection, the dates that it covers, the various different people involved, again, some of the subjects that it covers. And then when you scroll down, you can see all the wonderful photos or documents or items in this collection. This collection especially is marvelous because it covers a wide range of dates and different festas and soccer events and Holy Ghost festivals, all these amazing things. So yeah. This is just a small taste of our archive, but we really do encourage you to kind of play around, search, explore it, see what you can find.
And you can open all, if you could just like click on
Oh, yeah.
You can, when you click on a photo, you can make it bigger, so you can make it full screen and really look at it up close. In case you recognize anyone in these, I'm sure you do. And actually another important feature I do want to point out is that if you scroll down on the page, you're able, there's a comments section, and Nicole and I are the ones who get these comments. So if you ever are on our page and you notice, people in there, we would absolutely love it. If you have the time, if you could come down here and fill out this form and just say, like, here's a list of names I saw in this photo. This gets sent directly to us, and then we can update the webpage with those names, and that's absolutely important to us. Yeah,
absolutely.
You're talking about the
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so we would love to get some names.
What does that mean?
I think we know wrong.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Grab them today.
We'll come around with a notebook later. We'll take notes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, since we only have, I think, 1 or 2 names in there, so it would be great. But yeah, whenever you see us, or again, like I said, you can do it right through that comment form at the bottom of every item if you ever feel like helping us out and giving us more information.
I think that's it.
Yeah. So
thank you all very much.
Yes, thank you, and I want to say thank you also to everyone who's throughout the years. We wouldn't be able to do this without the community help and without so many people opening their homes to us and letting us borrow their items. We do return the items, we don't keep them, so we borrow them temporarily to digitize them within our archive with our tech there, and then we return them to community, and we wouldn't be able to do any of this without the help of everyone in the community trusting us. So thank you again for everyone that has helped us and for being here today.
Thank you.